Invisible owners are the loudest victims because it's easier for these people to point the finger than deal with guilt. Hey bitch, and welcome back to another video of me talking about people I hate. In today's video of what the hell is happening in the horse world, I wanted to call out the absolute worst type of horse owners, second to obviously horse abusers. So feel free to send this video to every irresponsible bad horse owner. If you are interested in extra content from me, you can become a channel member here on YouTube or check out my Patreon account. The link is in the description down below. First and foremost, a few weeks ago, we had the Pure Gold Stables fiasco. For those unfamiliar, a prestigious horse boarding facility in Ohio was found to have multiple dead horses on the property that starved to death. Also, there have been reports from workers at the facility that they didn't know that the horses were being starved, and also that boarders' horses were being starved at a certain point, and workers and owners didn't realize their horses were being starved. But a lot of these owners wanted me to make a video defending them, and I saw many of the owners of horses at this facility have set up GoFundMes to pay for their horses' medical bills. I don't know how legit those are, but I made a video a couple weeks ago calling out these owners that I received a lot of backlash and nasty emails from these owners as a direct result of this video, basically calling them out for being bad horse owners and just dumping their horses at a facility, never going to check on them, and then acting shocked like they're victims when bad things happen to their animals. This all boils down to trust but verify, okay? This is not just the facility's fault. It's not just the facility's fault, and it's not just the facility's owner's fault or the ranch hands. This is also the fault of the owners, who I've seen all over social media crying and whining about how they're victims. There's two types of owners in the horse world. Owners that are regulars that come out once a week to every single day. And then there's the owners that never fucking come. People could treat your horses really, really well for a week or two and then start starving them. People could treat your horses really well for a year and then start starving them. You don't entrust fully the care of your animals into somebody else and just wipe your hands clean. Because you know what? Then they shouldn't be your animals. They just shouldn't. If you don't care about them at all to go out and check on them, then they shouldn't be your animals, okay? You are quite literally the worst type of horse owner if you treat a living animal like a storage item. This is not the first time we've had situations like this occur. I've seen this happen at so many boarding facilities across the years, most notably the botulism alleged case that happened, I think, a year ago, where the owner of the horse that died, that was probably starved to death, lived maybe an hour down the road and never went to see their horse at all, and then also wanted to act surprised when her horse died. You might be surprised to hear me say this, but I actually don't feel bad for this horse's owner. This is exactly why you don't send your animals away for several months and never go see them and just trust that somebody is taking care of your animal. It doesn't matter how good of a facility you're keeping your horse at. It doesn't matter how much you're paying somebody. You still need to be an active participant in its life as the horse's owner and caretaker. You are your animal's advocate. You are your animal's voice. Nobody is going to care about your animal as much as you do. So when I see people who send their animals away to trainers or boarding facilities, and then they never see their horses, even though they only live an hour and a half away, for several months on end, and don't even get real videos or photos without the horse's blanket on, that seems very suspicious to me. To me, that shows a severe lack of interest in your animal and in the care for your animal, to be honest. You had the horse at her training facility for 4 months, and it was only an hour and a half away, and you never even went to check on your horse one time. The only victim in this situation is the horse that was murdered. The horse was starved to death, and not just this horse, but multiple other horses on this property. Those owners are not victims. The horses are the victims. Obviously, the people who starve the horses that are responsible for these boarding facilities are at fault. That's a given. Nobody's trying to say that these people are good or that we should take blame and responsibility away from them. But what I can't stand are negligent horse owners that participate in neglect-based abuse where they never see their animal, coming out of the woodwork when something bad does happen to their animal and playing the victim, when you still had that responsibility to care for your animal the entire time that you had the horse boarded. Boarding is not a replacement for ownership responsibilities. When you board a horse, you are still responsible for vet care. You are still responsible for farrier. You are still responsible for checking up on your animal and making sure they're okay, for taking them out, for brushing them over. It doesn't even matter if you're paying facility owners to deal with all of this for you. You still have that responsibility to check up on your animal on a regular basis. You would have known that this was going on with your horse or at the facility if you regularly went out to visit your animal.
A co-abuser is someone who participates knowingly or unknowingly in neglect-based abuse or abuse of any kind. And I do not defend co-abusers, okay? If you're someone who never went out to see your horse, you're a co-abuser if something happened to your animal. You guys want to come on here and say that you didn't know that any of this was happening, but also at the same time that you guys were filing animal neglect reports with the local police and they didn't do anything. Yeah, but which is it? It can't be both. You guys can't be filing reports with police for the last year and then also not know that it's going on at the facility and still continuing to stay there. I feel like a lot of these people either A, knew about it and chose to turn a blind eye, which is participating in abuse of these animals, or B, they never went out there and they only started saying that they were a regular when I called them out on that also being some form of neglect-based abuse because you never went out to see your animal and take care of them, so don't act shocked when something happens to them.
People that have horses who never come out to see them or take care of them is way more common than people think. It happens at basically every single boarding facility I've ever been to. And when I talk about people being regulars, I mean someone who's at least coming out once a week. I work my ass off every single day, and I know people who are nurses and doctors, etc., that have horses and they work their asses off every single day, and they still manage to come out and see their horse on a regular basis, meaning once a week or more. You should not have a horse if you can't even be bothered to go see your horse once a week. And you know what? If you're going out to see your horse once a week at minimum, you're going to know if your horse is being starved or mistreated. Every single owner, when they were called out for leaving their horses at Pure Gold Stables, they all wanted to say that this was a top tier facility. So why would they need to go out there every day to check on their horse? Because they all just expected that their horses were being cared for. That's not an excuse. It does not matter how nice a facility you keep your horses boarded at. You still are responsible for them as the owner. You're the animal owner. You're still responsible for them, and you still need to be checking up on them on a regular basis. Or otherwise, if you're not going to and you're going to be a negligent owner, then don't be surprised when your horse gets abused as a direct result of you not taking proper care of them. Now, I understand that none of the boarders' horses died at Pure Gold Stables, but a lot of these owners were claiming that their horses were injured in the sense of starvation or neglect, etc., which is your fault. Invisible owners are the loudest victims because it's easier for these people to point the finger than deal with guilt. And we saw this in the starvation case that I talked about last year. This horse's owner never went out to see the horse and then wanted to play the victim online when her horse was probably starved to death. and then get everyone to have sympathy for her, when at the end of the day, she would have absolutely noticed that her horse was starving to death if she had just gone to see him one time. Not to mention that when these negligent owners never come out to see their horses, it puts that burden to look after their horse onto everyone else at the barn who actually does care about horses and has a big heart. And I've certainly been placed in that situation many times before, where I feel responsible for other people's horses just because they basically abandon their horse at a facility, and maybe their horse gets hurt, or maybe their horse starts having issues metabolically. And then when you start notifying them, even still, they make excuses as to why they don't want to come out. And I'm not trying to add fuel to the fire and make owners feel bad, but you should not have a horse if you don't have time for them. It's really that simple. You shouldn't have any animal if you don't have time for that animal. And this is something that's not talked about enough, in my opinion, when it comes to responsible animal ownership. That's really why I never wanted to make a video on the Pure Gold Stables situation as a whole, because I don't feel like people involved in situations like that are victims. And when it comes to people who worked at the facility claiming that they didn't know the horses weren't getting fed because the owner was saying, "Oh, I fed the horses, don't worry about feeding them," I think that's bullshit too. I'm sorry. And I really want to end on this point, that it does not matter how nice of a facility you keep your animal at, unless you literally send your horse to a real retirement facility that is completely hands off. And I don't mean a normal barn. I mean an actual equine retirement facility, which usually consists of hundreds or thousands of acres, where you just throw your horse out there and they live out their final days like a wild horse would. Unless it's an actual retirement facility, you need to be going out and taking care of your horse a minimum of once a week. Otherwise, don't have a horse. Just lease horses or take lessons whenever you have availability to go out to the barn. I really just don't get this too, because owning a horse is so expensive. Someone else will take care of your horse better than you if you don't have the time or energy to go out and see them a minimum of once a week. And also, you probably will be way less stressed and have more money in your bank account if you just lease or take lessons when you have the availability to do that. And there's no shame in that. I actually think it's way more shameful to keep an animal that you don't have time for than it is to rehome them responsibly to other people that have the ability to take better care of them than you do.